Okay. So we looked into communication, which is most important aspect of any managerial or the management functions. And in case of a communication, we understood the importance of the communication, how communication is important, and what are the different types of communication: formal communication, informal communication, and what are the advantages of different types of communications, whether it's written or verbal or non-verbal, and when to use what, we understood. And communication plays an important role in all aspects. If you don't communicate, if the information is not properly passed, either from we saw the order also, from top to bottom, that was downward, or it can be upward from bottom to up. If information is not conveyed properly, it can lead to losses, inefficiencies, loss of the productivity. So communication is a very, very important aspect. We have to managerial responsibility is like whatever information is passed, it should be understood correctly by the receiver, and accordingly the task should be executed. Now, and we also looked into what are the different barriers that we have in communication. So what causes the communication barrier? Sometimes it is the physical barriers, okay, the distance or the connections, those can cause problems. Sometimes the organization structure, like the way organization structure is, there are a lot of communication gaps that can happen. And span, okay, so span is another reason. And sometimes incapability of the person who is transmitting the information, the manager, who does not understand completely the the information he has got. So he might partially or incorrectly pass the information to the next level. And sometimes the manager thinks like some of the information is not required for the next level. Even those can lead to a problem. Those are the barriers. And looking into those barriers, the communication can be improved. Communication can be improved upon, and communication is very, very important for the manager in order to make his employees or the team to work on the organizational objectives. Communication should be very, very, very accurate. So any kind of a miscommunication, it will lead to losses or inefficiencies. Next most important aspect is the controlling. Okay, so already we have seen what is controlling. Yeah, you understand what is the control. Once the execution starts, whether that execution is going in the right direction, okay, with the right kind of a progress or not. To check that, we employ the control mechanism. We will make sure that the work is getting done correctly and with a proper pace, so that the objective can be met according to the plan. The main object of the control is that bring to the light the variations between the standard set and performance, and then to take necessary steps to prevent occurrence of such variations in future. So the main objective is what? If there is any kind of a variation, the work which is planned, okay, and the work that is getting executed, if there is any variation, so plan is this thing and execution is this thing. If there is any variation, okay, so how that variation is found, we will see that in little while. We set some standards to find the variation, okay. And if there is a difference in the performance, then necessary steps will be taken to prevent the occurrence of such variations. The variation which is causing this, the reasons which are causing this variations are solved, or the problems which are causing these variations are solved, so that such variations will not occur in the future, and that particular task can be put back on the track, and it will be completed according to plan. That is the main objective of the controlling. It is the process through which manager assure that actual activities conform to planned activities. Okay, whatever the actual activities that is being executed, they are in compliance with the planned activities. In the words of EFL Bridge, control. So there are different definition by the different management practitioners. So one of the definition is control is checking current performance against predetermined standards contained in the plans with a view to ensuring adequate progress and satisfactory performance. So this is the definition. So whatever the according to plans, there are predetermined standards. Okay. So just to give an example, what is predetermined standard is, let us say it's a manufacturing unit and they are producing some kind of a units. Let us say a particular machine is capable of producing, like, let's say 100 units per hour. Okay. So then the standard in the plan, the plan will be done as per the this capacity 100 units per that particular machine. That is the predetermined standard. Let us say the due to some reasons only 80 pieces are or 80 units are getting done. So there is a variation. So that variation, the performance, the standard set is 100 and the actual performance what we are getting is 80. So there is a difference of 20. Then why this variation is coming into picture, what is the problem, what are the issues, that will be looked into and those problems are solved. So that is what this particular definition says. According to another management practitioner, George Terry, controlling is the determining what is being accomplished, that is evaluating the performance and if necessary applying corrective measures so that the performance takes place according to the plan. So same thing, same underneath meaning is the same, put it in a different words. So these are the main important steps. There are three main important steps in the controlling. First step is, if you want to control anything, first you have to set the standards. So first step is establishing the standards. So I just now I gave a example how we set the standards is with respect to that particular machine. The standard is 100 units per hour. That's the standard. So if it is some other activity, let's say coding, in case of IT projects, it's a coding. Roughly, we go by the like industry standards. Let us say 200 lines of code per day. Okay. So this is just a rough number I am throwing. So that is the standard we can set, or it is a number of lines, or it can be number of functions. Okay. In case of agile, it will be stories and tasks. So it can be number of tasks. So on an average, each person should be able to carry out 2 tasks per day. So that is the a standard. If particular person is not able to perform 2 tasks, then there is a variation in the performance. Okay. The set standard is 2 tasks and individual is able to do only, let us say, 1 task. His performance is 1 task. So there is a difference of 1 task. So that is causes the variation. Then the control mechanism comes into picture. So first we set the standards. That is the main important thing. And for setting the standards, it depends on what kind of activity it is, and based on there are some standard industry standards, or organization can set its own standards. Next one is measuring and comparing the actual results against the standards. So we will measure and compare whatever the actual results means, whatever the actual work that has been done against the standards, what standards is set. So once you do the measuring and the comparison, then you will find out if there is a variation or not. Then the step, if there is a variation, take corrective action. Taking corrective action, that is the third step. If there is a variation, that variation needs to be addressed. These are the 3 steps in the control process. First one is establishing standards. The first step in the control process is to establish standards against which results can be measured. So, when you are setting the standards, we should be very careful. It should be measurable. Okay. Let us say if something is non-tangible, it is very difficult to measure. Um, if you say like after this activity person's should increase. Okay. Skill should increase, that is a very intangible. We don't understand what it means. If you put the skill in doing this. Okay, should particular skills you can reference, and how we can measure those skills, that you should define. So when you are establishing standards, the most important thing, they should be measurable. Since entire operation cannot be observed, each organization must develop its own list of key result areas for the purpose of the control. So one important thing is, we cannot measure the entire operation. Let us say you are working in a factory where there are daily thousands of units of a certain product is being carried out, and your task is to check each of these product is carried according to the whatever the standard specified. Okay, the dimension or the kind of a material used, kind of a polish it gets. So those are the standards that is defined. When the product comes out, it should be according to that standard. But when a particular organization is producing thousands of such products, practically it is impossible to check all the products. So what they do is they do the sampling, right? The sampling, out of 100, they take two pieces randomly, and each lot of 100 they will pick randomly two, and that is how they will do it. So all those standards are set in the plan. So the in a lot of 100 units, picking two and testing, that is what will be mentioned in the standards. Some key areas in all business organizations are profitability, market position, for according to profitability, how much profit you can want to make in terms of a amount or in terms of a percentage. Market position, right? Then productivity, personal development. So all these things can be put as a standards. An executive who wishes to control a particular key area often finds that the work in question has several characteristics. So whenever a person is trying to control any key area, definitely it will have different kinds of characteristics. So what he should do is, therefore, determine the level of performance or par of each characteristic, quantitative terms, in quantitative. So there are different characteristics of each of the areas that is being controlled. So he must determine what is the level of performance or par, and that par should be in a quantitative terms, means it should be in a number so that it can be measured. Pars expressed in vague or general terms such as cost should be reduced or order should be executed quickly are not as specific. If you see, when you are setting a standards, just I give another example on this. The here it says cost should be reduced. It is not a very a specific measurable standard. So cost should be reduced. Even if the cost reduces by like 1 rupee, okay, whether it should reduce by 1 rupee, does it satisfy this standard, or whether it should reduce by 10 rupees or 100 rupees or whatever, this particular standard doesn't mention that. So it is a vague. So another example, order should be executed quickly. Quickly means how quickly has to be mentioned. So instead of using like that, you can use overhead must be reduced by 12%. So it gives a clear indication what the standard is. So whatever the overhead cost is there, it should reduce by 12%. All orders must be executed within 3 working days. So this is order should be executed quickly. So when person is setting that particular standard, maybe he is thinking 1 or 2 days, right? But if you don't specify, for some other person it could be a week, for some other person it could be a in few hours. So that is why it should be very specific. Even parts in areas such as public relations, while hard to express in quantitative terms, can be defined more accurately by adding more specific details about the number of and types of customer complaints. So public relations. So if you have a standard to improve public relations, so improve public relations is again, it's a vague. Instead what you can put some kind of a number. So number of complaints that is getting received should reduce by this percentage, or number of good feedback that we are getting should increase by this percentage. So it should be in terms of a number, and parts should be accepted by the individuals involved. So normally when parts are set, those are decided in the team. So what should be the performance level? I was telling you in IT industry, in agile projects, there will be stories that will be groomed. Okay, and once the team takes up those stories to implement, the stories will be divided into a task. The all the team members, irrespective who is going to do what, they discuss on each of the task, what should be done, how it should be done, and how much time it will take. So that is the standards they are setting. That standard is acceptable by all the individuals. So all the team will be involved, they will be, it is acceptable by all. So whatever the performance they are setting, it should be acceptable by all. And performance should be flexible in order to adapt to changing conditions. The performances should be able to change according to the conditions. So with emerging technologies, there will be definitely changes in the performance. Okay, performance may not degrade, always performance will improve. So those flexibility should be able to be adopted. So these are the different types of standards that we can set. Physical standards, in terms of number of units that is getting produced, right? That is a some kind of a physical standard. Or if it is related to some transportation, so these many kilometers per hour, things like that. Those are the physical standards. Cost standards, you can specify like increasing the reducing the production cost by so many percentage, reducing the cost incurred in procuring the raw material, things like that. So those form as a cost standards. Revenue standards, so profit should increase by this percentage. Okay, so those are the revenue standards. Capital standards, so whatever the capital that is available, you can set a standards, how the capital should be utilized, how the capital should be acquired. You can set a standards for that. Intangible standards, so intangible standards are which are hard to measure, like competency of the employees, then quality of the workforce, then the standards, the working standards, things like that. Those are the intangible standards you can set. Working practice standards, so working practice standards is like in working environment, what kind of a standards you want to set. Let's say, just to give some example, there will be using many tools in the working practice standards. So how that tool should be used and how should be it is put back to where it belongs. Okay, that can be a standard. There are some tools which are used in common across all the employees. What should be the standards for that? Those kind of standards we can set in the working practice standards. Measuring and comparing actual results against the standards. So first step is in controlling is establishing the standards, and once you establish the standards, then next step is what you should measure, and you should compare that with the actual results. Whatever the standards you have set, you have to measure the actual and compare it with the standards that you have set. The second step in the control process is to measure the result and compare it with the predetermined performance. One important point to be considered here is whether the measurement and comparison are to be done at various stages in the throughput process or at the end. So this is very important. Let us say it's a car manufacturing line. Whether you want to check the variation at different levels, because car manufacturing, until it comes as a end product, there are different stages it goes through. whether you want to go through each of those steps, or you want to do everything at the end. So that depends on the what kind of a process it is. If the purpose of control is to catch the trouble while it is forming, then it should be done at a various strategic points before the end of the throughput process. Let us say like it's a chemical plant and it's going through a various stages, and definitely the end product will depend on the performance of each stage. If the requirement is such that you want to catch the problem as soon as it occurs, then you should have the control at a different levels. If you are not really worried about the how it happens, then you can have the control at the end, okay, when the product is ready. The fault to be avoided, however, is to allow too long a period of time to pass between the performance measurements. So, the fault to be avoided, it will take a longer period. Suppose if you have you are checking the performance at the end, then it will take longer time to detect the fault. If you have the measurement and comparison at different levels, the fault is identified earlier. Definitely, how you implement also it involves the cost. If you are implementing the measurement and comparison at different levels, the cost will increase, and if you put it to the end, the cost will reduce. Frequency of measurement depends on the nature of task being controlled. So how frequently the measurement should be done, it depends on what kind of a task being performed. Once a measurement and comparison is done, we will come to know about the variation. So what is actually according to standards and what is the actual thing that is happening, we compare those two, and if there is a variation, then comes the third step, that is taking corrective action. After comparing the actual performance with the prescribed standards and finding the deviation, the next step that should be taken by the manager is to correct these deviations. So if there is any deviation, it should be corrected. Corrective action should be taken without wasting the time so that the normal position can be restored. So the whatever the corrective actions that are required, it should be taken as early as possible so that the whole production line is restored back. Manager should able to determine the correct causes for the deviation. So manager should be in a position to identify what caused that variation. So the cause is very important. To he should be able to identify the cause, then only a corrective action can be put. The causes for deviation may be different types, such as inadequate and poor equipment and machinery, inadequate communication system, lack of motivation of subordinates, defective system of the training and selection of personnel, defective system of remuneration, etc. So these are the some of the reasons why the deviations will happen. These are a very small subset. It depends on what kind of activity is being performed and how it is being performed. So deviations will be very specific to those particular tasks. The remedial action that should be taken depends on the nature of and cause for variation. So what kind of a remedial action has to be taken, it depends on what kind of a cause is producing that variation. So what is the need for the control? Why we should have a control mechanism? The control system is needed for three reasons. Control mechanism make sure the progress. Suppose if it is an IT project and a certain task should be completed in, let's say, 4 days, uh, the control mechanism that you have is on a daily basis. It checks on a daily basis, and when it checks on a daily basis, on the first day, on the end of the first day, approximately 25% of the work should be completed. On second day, 50%, third day 75%, and fourth day it should be completed. So when there is a when it is checking on every day and it is very close to what is determined, then we will say the progress is as per the plan. If there is any deviation, we will know the progress is hindered. So that is how to measure the progress, how the things are moving, we can use the control mechanism to understand that. To uncover deviations, this is the first one is the we want the things to be moving as per the plan, so that it progresses normally. If not, then it will uncover the deviation. If it is not progressing, we'll immediately come to know there is some kind of a deviation. And uh, to uncover deviation, it can happen due to some of the things like the change. The change is like in case of IT industry, earlier requirement was like they want some other changes. Those changes will have impact on the plan. It will have impact on the plan, and so there is a possibility of a deviation. A work that is taking just 4 days might take 5 days or 6 days. Second one is the complexity. See, complexity is the one, it is very difficult to comprehend before. When we land into actual situations, we understand the complexity, and that might result in the deviation. And the mistakes done by the employees in executing, that can cause the deviation. And delegations. So delegations is like one person giving the work to another, so he is delegating it. So normally manager, when he is busy or he is taking off, he delegates his responsibility to another person. The another person will execute his task on behalf of the manager. So when you are doing a delegation, if the delegated person is not fully qualified, it might cause the deviation. And next one is to indicate corrective action. So why we need the control? So that it will indicate the corrective action. If there is a deviation, corrective action can be implemented. Next one, to transmit corrective action to the operation. So whatever the corrective actions that are identified, so it will indicate what kind of corrective actions are required, and those actions will be transferred to the operations. Harshvardhan, Harshvardhan, Harish, Harish, can you hear me, Harish? Harish,
Hello. Yes,
Harish,
yes, sir,
when
I can hear you.
it got disconnected?
Sir, 5 minutes ago, sir.
5 minutes ago. Okay, actually, I did not get any
Yeah,
echo
yes,
or
sir.
anything.
Yes, uh, we thought that you disconnected, sir. There is no camera, no voice. That's why, sir.
No, no, no. Somehow it got disconnected. Even I didn't realize. Maybe how it happened, I don't know. I didn't get any ping on my side also.
Sir, this
So,
Google Sheet should be updated. That's why many people are getting out and in this.
one second.